Okay, you may begin.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming to the subcommittee on rescheduling, descheduling. It's November 17th, 2023. I'm going to call this meeting to order. My name's Chair Balducci. Let me now move on to roll call. Is Member Britton present?
I'm here.
Is Member Bertolo present?
I'm here.
Is Member Hughes present?
I'm here.
Is Member Klein present?
Present.
Thank you all. We're going to move on to agenda item number 1, public comment.
To provide public comment via Zoom, visit ccb.nv.gov, click the Public Meetings tab, and then select Commission Meetings. The link to the meeting can be found on today's agenda. You may also join by phone by calling 669-444-9171, enter a webinar ID 814-0858-7997, and passcode 491036. If you wish to provide public comment, click the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen if joining by Zoom. If joining by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. Catrice Saunderson, go ahead.
Hi, this is Patrice Saunders for Public Record. Sorry, I'm at the car wash and I just didn't want to miss this meeting this morning. I'll probably leave public comment after I get out of the car wash so you can hear me better. Thank you.
I see no one else for public comment at this time.
Great, thank you, Amber. Moving on, I'm actually going to take an item out of order because we have a subject matter expert waiting and is been kind enough to take the time to speak to our subcommittee. I'm going to take item 4, presentation by subject matter experts, out of order. And we have with us today Ian Stewart. Ian Stewart is the regional manager partner of Wilson Elser's Los Angeles office. He is founder and co-chair of the firm's cannabis and hemp law practice, where he leads a national multidisciplinary team of lawyers who serve all aspects of the cannabis and hemp industries, as well as financial institutions and insurance companies that service those industries. Ian has achieved a national reputation as a distinguished cannabis attorney and has been named to the prestigious Chambers USA Guide in Cannabis Law 2020 to 2023. He is a member of the advisory board of the International Cannabis Bar Association and has participated on the Policy Council of the National Cannabis Industry Association. Ian sits on the executive committee of the Los Angeles County Bar Association's Cannabis section and is chair of NCIA's Risk Management and Insurance Committee. He is one of MG Magazine's 30 Powerful Cannabis Attorneys You Should Know and is listed within Cannabis Report's 10 Powerful Marijuana Lawyers in California. Ian has also been named by National Law Review as Go-To Thought Leader in 2018 and 2021 for his publications on cannabis law and policy. Mr. Stewart, thank you so much for taking the time this morning to speak with the subcommittee. I know you and I were able to connect offline, and after I've had an opportunity to speak with you, I really thought it would be helpful to actually have you speak to the subcommittee and the public as a whole so they could hear exactly what your expertise is and what your thoughts are on the topics we've been studying as a part of this subcommittee. So thank you, Mr. Stewart, for taking the time to meet with us and speak to us today.
Well, thank you, Ashley. A pleasure to be here.
So to kind of start off, and I thought it was really helpful when I initially spoke to you, are you able to kind of just give the subcommittee and the public a high-level view of how cannabis businesses insure themselves and their products?
Certainly. So many of the folks who may be operating cannabis businesses have probably experienced some frustration around insurance over the last few years. It has been an industry that has grown and adapted to the state markets and to the Schedule I problem, of course. And so what we have now going into 2024 is an insurance market that is constituted by about 30 entities, insurance companies and other underwriting professional companies that write basically all lines that companies need to greater or limited extents. So commercial general liability, product liability, and property are the three, kind of main products that that companies will look for as sort of base products. There's a number of good options there. The key is to get a good insurance broker who knows the cannabis industry, because these products do have significant exclusions and limitations in them, and are drafted in a way that oftentimes are not quite the way that companies operate. So, for example, with security endorsements, maybe they have vault room requirements or other storage requirements that aren't totally consistent with the state regulations, and companies need to really watch that. The specialty lines, which would be employment, cyber, directors and officers coverage, things like that, are more available now than they were a couple of years ago. These tend to be very expensive products compared to other markets, and they're fairly limited in terms of their coverage. But they're there. I think the biggest problem that cannabis companies see is for the very small operators, it's on price, because all of the policies tend to be more expensive compared to other markets. And then for the very large operators, it's limits. They have a hard time getting the amount of insurance that they need, especially on the property side for all of their facilities. And then on the excess and reinsurance, that can be difficult too. So in terms of rescheduling from potentially Schedule I to Schedule III, I do expect that there's going to be a really good benefit to the insurance industry and to the cannabis operators, because Schedule I is the main reason why many of the very large companies, the large insurance companies who aren't presently willing to operate in the cannabis space, don't do that. And there's a good reason for that. Insurance companies are defined as financial institutions within the federal statute called the Bank Secrecy Act, which is the primary federal statute that polices sort of anti-money laundering. And that's the Treasury Department that polices that through the Bank Secrecy Act. So you have depository financial institutions like banks and credit unions, and then also insurance companies. The insurance companies don't have quite the level of due diligence and requirements to file what's called suspicious activity reports the same way that banks and credit unions do, but they still have a number of obligations, and that's really kept many of the large household name insurance companies that people know out of the industry. So the industry is largely serviced by what's called the surplus lines. These are companies that are not necessarily admitted within the state, though they're licensed to do business within the state. And that's these companies, service industries that are emerging or somewhat seen as more risky, or where the underwriting isn't necessarily as well known as more developed product markets. So I think that that when we see a movement away from Schedule I, it's very likely we'll have new carriers that'll enter. I think that'll drive prices down for everybody. It'll allow for more admitted products, which will have more stability in terms of what's in the actual policies, so that the brokers can educate their clients, the cannabis operators, more effectively than they can now. And I think it'll just facilitate growth all around. The big question, of course, is Schedule III. Schedule III is still a controlled substance, and carriers will still have some concerns about how that's going to be regulated at the federal level, and what exposures there are. So there's still going to be significant underwriting questions that carriers have. But I think that'll hopefully sort of shake out during the rulemaking process, and companies, again, the carriers have been pretty good about pivoting and being flexible with the market so far. So I'm overall optimistic that we'll see prices going down on insurance over the next year and a half.
Thank for that. And we're also looking at the potential effects on Nevada's cannabis industry if cannabis is deschedulized from the state Controlled Substances Act. So putting aside the federal aspect, if it's deschedulized on the state level, do you have any opinion as to what the potential effects would be in that scenario?
Well, I think it's similar. So when any financial institution looks at servicing licensed companies within any given state, they're going to look at both the federal and the state Controlled Substances Act, and every state, has similar variations on Schedule 1. So what I just said at the federal level pertains, similarly to the state level. I think that honestly, if you don't have a change of if the state removes it, but there's no action at the federal level, it isn't going to have a major impact for new companies entering. Most of the financial institutions are squarely focused at the federal level. It's not to say that the state statute isn't also important. That's just not the driver, I think, of many of these decisions.
We're also just looking if cannabis is deschedulized by like Congress. I'm sure it would be even more of an impact, right, than it being rescheduled from a 1 to a 3 by the DEA.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
Oh no, that's fine. We're also just looking at if Congress descheduled on a federal level, as opposed to just being rescheduled from a 1 to a 3 by the DEA.
If Congress deschedules and marijuana is regulated, let's say like alcohol, then you're going to see many insurance companies jumping in quickly because you're not going to have the Schedule 3 problem. Now, again, there has to be some kind of federal regulatory plan in place so that there's some level of comfort that it isn't just going to be the Wild West, because at the end of the day, any insurance company wants to look at the underwriting. Do we have a loss history? Are we able to appropriately price the products and have a reasonably confident level of what the litigation and claims environment is going to look like? And sometimes when you have a major change like potentially descheduling, then you've got other questions. How does that work with the hemp markets and the intoxicating products on the hemp side? What about interstate commerce? Questions like that, which could cause some uncertainty in the short term, may make some of the larger carriers hesitant to enter the space until there's some better certainty. But I think you've got a number of fairly large carriers that are just simply waiting. I mean, they're ready to go. They've got, they can enter the space on short notice. They just want to change to Schedule 1, primarily because of the Bank Secrecy Act, as I mentioned, but also because they want to protect their own relationships with their own banks and lenders, and then to a much lesser extent reputational concerns. But those are largely fading.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I know we kind of briefly discussed this offline, and I'm not sure if you have more of an opinion or want to expound on it, but we also wanted to look at like the medical insurance and whether if rescheduling from a 1 to a 3 would actually entice health insurance carriers to cover medical marijuana.
I think that's a big unknown. I mean, I saw that, this is a question that's out there. In fact, I just saw there was an article on this very topic in Marijuana Business Daily today. And I think they got it right for anybody who wants to look that up. But the main question is going to be, okay, it goes from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. It's still a controlled substance. There are very few cannabis drugs that are FDA approved. There's some in the pipeline. Certainly, once it goes to Schedule 3, any physician is going to be able to prescribe an FDA approved drug. They can recommend without prescribing non-FDA approved cannabis treatment without fear of losing a federal DEA license, which many physicians hold, and is one of the reasons why they don't engage in that activity. The other is in insurance. Medical groups don't have effective insurance coverage in almost all cases for doctors who wish to participate by providing, recommendations for medical cannabis to their patients. Because there's only a couple markets that'll write this. It's very expensive. And I do think once we have a move away from Schedule 1, you'll see more options there, and you'll see medical groups and hospitals that are going to be more interested in exploring, developing actual protocols to allow their physicians to more effectively provide recommendations for medical marijuana. This is going to be a moving target, and I think it's going to take some time. Frankly, I don't see it changing overnight because Schedule 3, even though it's not Schedule 1, no one's going to go to prison for it. It's still a federal violation, and most hospitals, medical groups are going to take that seriously, and it's going to be a slow process.
Yeah, you said something that's kind of interesting, and I just want to make sure I'm on the same track here. In order for the doctor to be able to prescribe it, it has to be an FDA approved drug. And if it's not an FDA approved drug, then it can't be prescribed. It can only be recommended.
For a prescription, right? So,
yes.
But exactly, that's right.
Okay. That was pretty much all the questions I had for Mr. Stewart, unless anybody else on the subcommittee has a question for him. I see that member Britton maybe unmuted himself.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you. I've been in the industry for a long time, and I felt your comments were interesting and well noted. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Yes, and thank you for your time. I thought this was really helpful, and I was really just going to connect with you offline, but after we spoke, I really thought this would help the subcommittee and the public as a whole to hear what you had to say. So thank you again, Mr. Stewart, for coming today and sharing your knowledge.
My pleasure.
Okay, with that, I'm going to move on to our next item on the agenda, which is agenda item 2, consideration for approval of the September 29th, oops, sorry. I had the agenda up and then I lost it. Apologize. A consideration for approval of the September 29th, 2023 Rescheduling Committee meeting minutes. I just want to make sure that all the members on this subcommittee had an opportunity to review those minutes before we take action on this item. Can everyone let me know if they've had that opportunity?
I've reviewed.
I've reviewed as well.
I've also reviewed the minutes.
Mr. Klein, did you have an opportunity?
Having trouble getting off mute here. I'm sorry. Andrew Klein has reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna actually take this item then, and we can move forward. I did find on the meeting minutes one typographical error, and I tried to mimic what board council did last meeting when we had some typographical errors. It's on page 3, paragraph 6. It states, Chair Balducci asked if Mr. Sklamberg if rescheduling would change. I would just propose taking out the if between asked and Mr. Sklamberg. But that's the only typographical error I noted in the meeting minutes. Did any other members note similar typographical errors?
I found one on page 1. It's the first paragraph in public comments, about 2/3 of the way down. Nevada laws were strategic and exclude people. It should be excluding. And also there's some inconsistencies in terms of capitalization of state and federal throughout the document.
Do you have those noted by any chance? Because if we're going to move on them, we probably need to make sure that they're noted as a part of the motion.
I noted one of them in that first paragraph of the public comment, but I didn't note them throughout.
Anybody else have any typographical errors that they noted?
I did note a few of them, Ashley. In the instructions, it says instructions to join the meeting via Zoom. It's just a duplicate.
That's on page 1.
That's on page 1.
Okay.
On page 2 in the presentation by subject matter expert in the second paragraph, third line, it says state Nevada, which it should say state of Nevada.
Okay.
Same paragraph, very last sentence. You were asking about rescheduling cannabis from a Schedule 1 substance to a Schedule 2 substance. I believe when we were in that discussion, we were talking Schedule 1 to Schedule 3.
Oh, good catch.
And that is the extent of my comments.
Okay. Member Hughes, Member Klein, do you have any other typographical errors that you'd like noted?
I do not. Member Britton captured the ones that I was going to say.
Member Bertolo, do you want a few minutes to maybe find the other typos noted, or did Member Klein address them?
I can look through the state versus federal. I'm not sure if we want those capitalized or lowercase.
Perhaps we have state capitalized but federal lowercase.
That's what it was in that first paragraph that I noted.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So are you proposing to have them both lowercase, or?
I think grammatically they should both be lowercase, but I could be corrected on that.
I'm fine with them being lowercase if so long as that's, so it would be pages 1 is where it's noted. It's on page 2 as well. So 1, 2. I'm looking right now just to see, but I don't see state capitalized anywhere else other than on pages 1 and 2. And I don't see federal capitalized at all.
I don't see them either.
Okay. I'm just checking one more time. All right, Chrissy, you may have to correct my motion, but I'm going to try my best here. Do we have a motion to approve the September 29th, 2023 rescheduling, descheduling subcommittee meeting minutes, subject to the recommended changes on pages 1, 2, and 3?
Perfect. I move to approve.
I second.
All in approval, say aye.
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 All who deny, say nay. Hearing none, motion carries. Alrighty, moving on to item number 3. Updates from members on research conducted for final report. So I put this on the agenda just to kind of keep it on our radar. I know that we're all working offline on the topics that were assigned to us during the September 29th meeting. I did want to put out there for Member Hughes that Member Britton was able to secure a federal tax subject matter expert for December 1st at 11 a.m. at that meeting to help with some of the federal tax implications if cannabis is rescheduled from a 1 to a 3 on the Federal Controlled Substance Act. So I wanted to put that out there and kind of just discuss as a committee where we see ourselves and whether we think we could meet a December 15th deadline to review a draft report and maybe get it finalized and voted on as far as recommendations, or if we think maybe we have one more meeting between or have another meeting in January after the holidays to have that final report done and voted on as far as moving to the Cannabis Advisory Commission. So I just kind of wanted to open up this discussion with everyone. And also, if anyone's having issues with research or needs a subject matter expert, now would be the time to kind of raise that issue. So that way we can try and connect you with people and resources to get that information.
This is Member Britton. I feel like Andrew has done the bulk of our information. I feel like he has done an amazing job, covering it in a pretty thorough manner. I think for us, it will probably take another 2 to 3 weeks to really polish this up. But we've had a lot of success on our front.
So are you thinking that maybe we can meet a December 15th deadline with a draft report for the subcommittee as a whole to discuss, and if it's fine, then we can vote on it then, but if it needs maybe some tweaking, we could always set another meeting in January to bring in, the final report with recommendations. But I feel like everybody's been working pretty successfully on their own, looking at the topics and researching. So I really don't want to lose this momentum, but I know the holidays are coming and I just want to be considerate of everyone's schedule.
Yeah, I personally think that one more meeting would probably be advisable, only because there seems to be a lot of movement and chatter in the space, and some things could definitely present themselves between now and January. So I would be in favor of having one additional meeting before we're prepared to turn over a draft report.
Yeah, I would agree. Things are moving, so fast. Just by way of example, today, the omnibus appropriations bill expired. The president is about to sign whatever it is that the House presented to the Senate. And it's not clear yet. I think it will be included, but it's not clear yet whether Roebuck or Farr is included. We're hearing that DEA is going to be issuing their draft rule very soon, and that could happen any day. So,
and Andrew, if I'm correct, most likely by the end of December, right? So I think it really behooves us to extend into January, and then potentially try to earmark February or mid-February for a final draft report.
If we have that luxury, I would wholeheartedly agree.
I believe we do. I know the report's due at the end of March, but we're doing the study. We're doing, the heavy lifting here and making the recommendations. And ultimately, it's just going to go to the Cannabis Advisory Commission to decide whether or not they want any of those recommendations to move forward.
I just think that getting those into the advisory commission with the most current information is probably the most advisable. So I think if we can try to earmark having a final report turned over to the advisory commission beginning of March and give us all the way through February to make sure that everything's complete and up to date, would probably be the best course of action.
Well, I think that's really responsible too, because my concern is we turn a report over in January and there's a ton of change between January and March.
And it's almost guaranteed. Yeah.
I agree. So I'm thinking that we have the meeting on December 1st at 11 a.m. where Member Hughes will get to hear from the federal tax subject matter expert. And then maybe after the holidays, so we'll have the one meeting in December and then have a meeting in January to discuss the draft report, and then give ourselves maybe one more month to update should some momentum occur, and have a meeting in February on the final with making the recommendations to the Cannabis Advisory Commission at that time. Does that work with everybody? I don't want to schedule a bunch of meetings for December when everybody, this is a busy time for everyone. And if we don't need to hear from any other subject matter experts and we need the time to just research and write on our own, I would rather spend the time doing that.
I have a meeting on the 1st at 11:30, so I would only be able to give 30 minutes at that time.
If you want, Dr. Bertolo, what I could do is I could move our meeting to 10 and just take, well, actually, I didn't have anything else really scheduled other than to have the subject matter expert come and speak on that day. So it may not even take 30 minutes, to be quite frank. We could maybe just start it. We could start it, and then if for whatever reason you need to log off, you can, so long as we just have a quorum present.
That's
Yeah.
fine with me.
And Ashley, if it works better, perhaps we could move the meeting to 10 o'clock.
If that works for her, 10 a.m., we can move it to 10, and then that way Dr. Bertolo can attend the whole meeting.
Yeah.
That's fine with me.
Won't be a problem. Okay, I'll let her know.
And then any other members need subject matter experts, because now would be the time to identify them. We have the time to have them come on and speak and give you any information you need that would be helpful with your research and your writing. All right, hearing none. If it does come up, I'll put it as an item for the next meeting on December 1st, just to make sure if something does come up while you're researching and you think it'd be helpful to hear from anybody in particular, then obviously I'll just put it on the agenda and you can raise it at that time when we take that item. And so we've kind of already discussed item 5 with item 3, which is future meetings. So it sounds like we're going to meet at 10 a.m. on December 1st. We're then going to meet in January. Does anybody have any? I was thinking we should probably meet maybe the 2nd or 3rd week in January, the 12th or the 19th.
Both work fine for me.
Both work for me as well.
Okay. So I'll schedule it on one of those 2 days, depending on where we're at. And the hope would be that we'd have a draft report to discuss amongst the subcommittee. And then if there needs to be updates between that time and February, which at that time I'm going to reserve the time to discuss when we're going to meet in February, just because I don't really have things calendared yet, and I don't know what my February looks like. But if we could just discuss it at that January meeting when we're going to meet for a final time, hopefully, and vote on the final report and recommendations to move to the Cannabis Advisory Commission, that would be ideal for me, so long as it's ideal with the subcommittee as a whole.
Sounds great.
Okay. All right, so we'll plan on meeting next December 1st at 10 a.m. And we will be hearing from our federal tax subject matter expert at that time. And we'll continue to just research, write, and continue to update, since this seems to be moving at a pretty quick speed and we're constantly having to acclimate our research to it. But I think it will be most beneficial for the legislator and the Cannabis Advisory Commission if we have the most up-to-date info. So I agree with the subcommittee as a whole. So if that is, unless anybody has anything else they want to share, I was going to move on. All right, hearing none, I'm going to move on to item number 6 on the agenda, which is public comment.
If you wish to provide public comment, click the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen if joining by Zoom. If joining by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. As a reminder, public comment is limited to 3 minutes. We will let you know when you have 30 seconds left of your time. Please state your name for the record. Catrice Saunders, you may begin.
Hi, this is Catrice Saunders for the record. I have been affected by the war on drugs at a state level and a federal level. I've probably been dealing with this since 2010, when I first got indicted under Operation Chronic Problem. for helping patients. I helped over 800 patients before I got indicted. I went to prison, protected a bunch of people, watched them build an industry. When I got out, I helped grand open the source. I worked at the dispensary in Nevada. Then 3 years into it, they changed the law to exclude me for having a federal felony for helping medical cannabis patients. Only did this legislative session did they write a law to kind of assist with some of the things that I've been dealing with. I never hear anyone speak about retroactive assistance for people who have been affected in such a manner, to have the state actively make laws to exclude you so they don't have to listen to the things that you have to say as a Black woman, advocating for just normal things and being compensated correctly after they mine you for your intellectual property and you help train people and they just discard you and your time and energy after you've risked your family and protected people. This is the thanks I get from the state. Also, with this descheduling, it needs to be totally descheduled so that people can have safe access across the board, so that people don't have to be criminalized, whether they have guns for being a patient, whether they are scared because they don't want people in their business and they just want healing. There also needs to be looked at proper growing practices because radiation was not used prior to us going from medical to retail in order for people's products to get to market. There's lots of things that also need to be looked at in the federal descheduling or rescheduling, however you guys are putting it. You guys need to get actual input from people who have been affected by the war on drugs, like myself, at a state level and a federal level, not just people that you deem subject matter experts because of their accolades. I've gone to school since I've been out of prison for business and entrepreneurship. I helped build businesses here. I should be afforded the same luxury as old white men and women to help build generational wealth, which I help build for other people, but I can't do for myself because I have this federal felony for distribution on my record for helping people. And the same thing that white women or men are getting rich, while there's still people who have been affected by the war on drugs that are adversely affected by the federal law and things not being changed. So instead of hypothetically making
You have
assumptions,
30
I feel like,
seconds.
thanks. I'm mindful of that. I appreciate it. Moving forward, I think that you guys should have people like myself involved in the conversation and not just people that you think are subject matters to make it look good on paper. Thank you. This is Catrice Saunders for the record.
Abby Kaufman, you may begin.
Hi, thank you. For the record, my name is Abby Kaufman, Kaufmann, and I am the secretary for the board of directors at the Chamber of Cannabis. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Ian Stewart for providing his expertise regarding the various scenarios surrounding the scheduling, understanding that the biggest benefit to the industry, especially when it comes to accessing financial services, would be descheduling at the federal level. I appreciate his acknowledgement of the fact that descheduling at the state level is still worthwhile and not unsubstantial. So I just wanted to say that I hope that as the subcommittee moves forward with the research, that this area continues to be fully explored. I was hoping there'd be a little bit more discussion on the findings of the initial research. I understand that, you know, it's still coming together and it's multifaceted, but was hoping for a little bit more of an update. And I'm not super thrilled to hear that most of the lift of the information collection is being done by one individual. But so with that, I'm hoping that once the draft report is ready, I'd like to ask that that be shared publicly and that the sources of information and the findings are included and made available to help ensure objectivity and allow the stakeholders to weigh in. Thank you.
Abad Pisa, you may begin.
Oh, hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi,
Mr. Pisa, your audio does not appear to be coming through right now.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Now, yes.
Okay, about pizza for the record again. Again, when we were the people of Nevada were trying to get cannabis into our constitution, we were trying to get it to where no one would be
Mr. Pisa, your audio appears to be cutting out again. Chair Balducci, maybe public comment can be submitted electronically and emailed into the CCB.
Hello?
Sir, are you
Hi, how
able?
much of that were you guys able to hear? I'm not sure how much of that you guys were able to hear or not.
None of what you said came through.
Oh, I was saying that when we signed for cannabis to get into our constitution, we were running decriminal or descheduled altogether. We were no longer wanting people to be or be criminalized for cannabis or marijuana. That the purpose of us pushing it into our constitution was so that people could be free and it could be legal for not just medically, because again, most of us thought that any use of cannabis was medicinal use because you're using it to alleviate some kind of symptom, some kind of stress, some kind of issue that you may be undergoing. So for that reason, I'm really restating my stance that you guys should be looking towards or investigating the deschedulization or the decriminalization altogether of this plant or medicine or herb. Were you able to hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Chair Balducci, I see no one else for public comment at this time.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to item 7, adjournment. Thank you everyone for coming. I'll see you on December 1st.
Thank you.